All right, greetings everyone. I'm
Hmm.
Stephen Donaco, the founder of Social Chrysalis. Welcome to this roundtable. This latest in our series is Creative Aging, Embracing Life with Passion, Purpose, and Possibility with our hosts Walter Drew and Barbara Doern Drew. And I am very grateful that they are a part of the Social Chrysalis family. I've had the pleasure of co-facilitating, at least on the back end, their live delivery of their course by the same name last year. They're going to offer it again and talk more about that. But I won't spend a whole lot of time introducing them. They have plenty to say, and they have plenty to share in terms of wisdom about what it means to age consciously. And it's definitely worth the time. We appreciate you being here. This series would not be possible without your attendance and your presence and your interest. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, I hand it over to Barbara and Walter.
Well, good evening. Barbara and I are delighted to be with you for this third Social Chrysalis Roundtable. We'll be talking about creative aging, embracing life with passion, purpose, and possibility, which is not only the program we've been teaching for the past 5 years, but more importantly for us, it's a way of life. We'll be sharing our research and personal experiences with you, and what happens when you say yes to the opportunities that show up from the universe, from spirit, from God, whatever name you give it. Following that, we'll open up for questions and an interactive dialogue with you. But first, we'd like to share this passage about aging by the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy, Ernest Holmes, which we feel is the perfect lead-in to our evening together.
Youth is not entirely a time of life. It is a state of mind. It is not wholly a matter of ripe cheeks, red lips, or supple knees. It is a temper of the will, a quality of the imagination, a vigor of the emotions, a freshness of the deep springs of life. It means a temperamental predominance of courage over timidity, of an appetite for adventure over love of ease.
Nobody grows old merely by living a number of years. People grow old only by deserting their ideals. Years may wrinkle the skin, but to give up interest wrinkles the soul. Worry, doubt, self-distrust, fear, and despair. These are the long, long years that bow the head and turn the spirit back to dust.
Whatever your years, there is in every being's heart the love of wonder, the undaunted challenge of events, the unfailing childlike appetite for what is next, and the joy in the game of life. You are as young as your faith, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, as old as your despair. In the central place of every heart, there is a recording chamber. So long as it receives messages of beauty, cheer, and courage, so long are you young.
So with these words in mind, we'd like to tell you that 5 years ago, we had absolutely no idea that we'd be here with you this evening.
We were taking a class with human potential pioneer Jean Houston, and in one of the many exercises, I had the exciting inner realization that Walter and I had a purpose together as a spiritual couple. And when I shared that later with him, it felt right to both of us, though to be honest, we had no idea what it meant. And yet we said a resounding symbolic yes.
But you got to be careful when you say yes, because the universe gets right to work. It's like planting seeds and the plants just pop up. Within a week of having that experience and saying yes, we were contacted by a minister in Campbell River, British Columbia. Reverend Jill Brockerhurst said they were doing a book study group using Richard Rohr's book, Falling Upward, on the spiritual aspects of aging. They wanted some elders to facilitate a 3-day retreat on the second half of life. We've been recommended by Dr. Ken Gordon, who was then the spiritual leader of Centers for Spiritual Living. Were we interested? Again, without any hesitation, we both said, yes. However, when we got off the phone, I turned to Barbara and I said, shoot, the only thing I know about aging is that I'm 73. That's not exactly what I said, but.
And I said, elders? Where are the elders? Are we elders? I mean, we really haven't thought of ourselves that way. But when we thought about it, we realized that we were qualified to do this. Between us, we'd been involved with consciousness work since 1973, and most recently with the Science of Mind spiritual philosophy for over 2 decades, taking numerous classes and teaching some classes and workshops ourselves. In our current Jean Houston class, we were exploring higher possibilities for humanity. And perhaps most importantly, we were experiencing the aging process ourselves and trying to do it consciously. It was time to say yes to our elder status.
So we got to work. I went online, went to Amazon, and ordered the book, Falling Upward. Well, you know Amazon. People who read this book also bought, and $100 later, we had the start of our creative aging library. We also got trained as conscious aging facilitators for the Institute of Noetic Sciences Conscious Aging course. Then we designed the 3-day retreat, went to Campbell River, and had a transformational experience. Truth be told, we were actually amazed at how everything fell into place.
Since that time, we've continued to say yes to the new opportunities that continually present themselves to us. With the blessing of Jean Houston, who called us exemplars of the aging process, we were 73 and 67 at the time. In the past 5 years, our creative aging program has taken us to Ukraine, to Canada twice, to Mexico, along with numerous locations in the United States. This past March and April, we branched out and we took our creative aging course live online with Social Chrysalis for the first time. And here we are with you this evening. We've also written articles for Science of Mind magazine on creative aging and a variety of other topics and spiritual teachers. This is how it works. We magnetize to ourselves what we put our attention on.
So right now we want to stop for a minute and check in on the demographics of this group. We're going to do a quick poll to see where you fall in the age spectrum. And you're going to have 3 choices. The first, for people like Barbara, who were born between 1946 and 1964, the baby boomers, or like me, people who were born before 1946, and hopefully some of you out there were born after 1964. So please make your selection quickly, and Robert will give us the results. So click on.
Click on.
Just try it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, can't
Should we
vote.
do? Okay.
No, can't vote.
Oh.
All right, we're almost there. Right here we have 1 person before 1946, 14 between, and 3 after 1964.
All right. Well, that makes sense because the baby boomers, that group between 46 and 64, comprises 26% of the total US population. And every day, 10,000 people are turning 65, and that's going to continue until 2030 for the next decade. That's in the United States, but that same pattern is true. There's a population bulge that came after the Great Depression and the Second World War. And you can imagine what might be coming up after the coronavirus. I want to share some of our research with you. Recent research from Europe says that middle age now goes through age 74 or so. Additionally, 1 in 65-year-old women and 1 in 12-year-old men will live to celebrate their 100th birthday. In essence, the traditional retirement age of 65 and the lifestyle and activities that went along with that no longer applies. Here's some good news. Buddhist teacher and meditation teacher Louis Richmond cites research that states those who attend spiritual or religious services of any kind at least once a week tend to survive 7 years longer than those who don't. You know, boomers have always challenged the mores and status quo of society, And now we have the potential to bring our idealistic, innovative, and creative approaches to redefining the current Western concept of aging.
So how do we harness all this creativity and vitality? According to the Pew Research Center, the typical boomer feels 9 years younger than his or her chronological age. Yet even with this younger energy, better medical care, the growing focus on eating well, exercising, and generally being more healthy than previous generations, many of this group are expressing fears and concerns about aging.
And experts report that the predominant worry is about loss of identity. If I'm no longer motivated by career goals, have a clear focus for my energies, I'm no longer an active parent or grandparent, and if my body and mind don't work as effectively as they used to, who am I? The list also includes loneliness, depression, fear of the dying process, despair, financial issues, health issues, especially around senility. For some, things that used to be satisfying are no longer so. Yet there's often no clear vision or understanding about what's next. And many of these things are exacerbated by the challenges and lifestyle changes as a result of the pandemic.
So these fears and concerns are definitely all quite valid and relevant. And at the same time, we want to call attention to another category of serious concerns for some of us as well. This takes the form of such questions as, why am I here? Am I fulfilling my unique purpose? Have I made a positive contribution to planet Earth? Deepak Chopra counsels us to focus on what we want rather than what we don't want. In our work, we've chosen to focus more on this last category of concerns, how to live from our highest human potential. We're here to tell you from personal experience that now at 78 and 72, we're in the most creative and exciting period of our lives, truly. We believe this is something you can experience as well. Research about aging almost universally indicates that spiritual practices are critical for fulfilling later years. At this time, the focus of life shifts from doing, accomplishing, and acquiring, to being, and then interacting with the world around us from this new place of conscious intention. Barbara Marx Hubbard refers to this as evolution by choice, not by chance. We want our doing to be imbued with passion, purpose, and expanded possibilities, to express our highest human potential, to be of service to humanity, to be stewards of our planet. The list goes on, whatever brings meaning to our lives. In the last century, Carl Jung said, a human being would certainly not grow to be 70 or 80 years old if this longevity had no meaning for the species. The afternoon of human life must also have a significance of its own. Though our lifespans in general have lengthened from when he was speaking, the principle is the same. All stages of life matter. Discovering and defining that significance is the opportunity in front of us.
We've identified a dozen spiritual practices that have contributed to our path of creative aging. We're going to explore those in our courses and workshops. So Robert, would you put up the wheel of spiritual practices? As you can see, they run the gamut from meditation, life review, self-compassion, forgiveness and gratitude, to releasing all that no longer serves us, exploring what is calling us now as a result, getting clear on our life purpose with the help of a unique visioning process, and setting intentions, to practices that serve to renew us, inspirational classes and reading, being in spiritual community, and service. We'll explore a few of them with you this evening.
But first, keep this up, please, Robert. We'd like to call your attention to the blue morpho butterfly at the center of the wheel. And the reason we chose the butterfly for our creative aging work is that our work is all about personal transformation, which the butterfly symbolizes so graphically. The evolutionary process is like the chrysalis or pupa stage, when the butterfly to be is transforming from a worm, short, stubby, and with no wings, into its ultimate glorious butterfly form to go forth into the world and fulfill its purpose. So thank you, Robert. You can take that down now. So back to the spiritual practices. The most significant for us is meditation. It's really the foundational practice that anchors our days. This is our time to go within and listen for the still small voice that is always present, wanting to connect with us and offer guidance. Every morning we sit side by side in meditation for 30 minutes. And this is for both of us the most cherished time of our day before we jump into our to-do lists and all the opportunities of life. And we're finding meditation is an especially critical practice during this time of ever-changing outer conditions over which we have little control. It provides the stability from which we engage with all the chaos.
A very important practice that can assist us at this stage is reflecting on our significant life experiences to date. And one way to do this is to look at our life by decades, noting important events that help to shape us, both in positive and negative ways. This process can bring forth the strengths and positive gifts you have and want to take with you into the future, as well as youthful passions that may have been squelched or set aside for practical reasons. You'll also discover attitudes, patterns, beliefs, and stories that no longer support you and need to be released, that you can be open to new opportunities awaiting you. In one of the classes we took in 2014, one of the exercises was to write our own obituary. We were asked to reflect on how we would like to be viewed at the end of our lives, and then to consciously set the intention for us to become that person now. Why wait? This led me to some serious self-reflection. My mother had died at 72, and I was 72 at the time I wrote my obituary. I realized that I was somewhat apprehensive that I might also die at 72. Regarding the future, I'd been telling myself that I didn't have enough time or that I was too old to start something new. But I then made the decision to put in the obituary that I lived to be 102, which put 30 years in front of me. That gave me enough time to do anything I wanted, and the psychological inner shift was transformational. This opening to new possibilities actually led us into our creative aging work. Just goes to show you, change your thinking, change your life.
Another value in life retrospection is that it brings to light old wounds that still need healing before we can freely embrace the aging process with open-heartedness and positive anticipation. I had a long-standing wound around my father that was complex, but it partially revolved around what I'd perceived as his disapproval for me of lifestyle choices I'd made that were different from his expectations. After all, I was a student at Berkeley in the late 1960s, and then went on kind of from there in two very different decades in the 70s and 80s from anything my parents ever experienced. That's for sure. So I'd worked on this many times. It seemed like it kept coming back around in my life and over the years. And I thought, along the way, well, I think I've worked on that now. I think I've cleared that. But in that class, same class where Walter wrote his obituary, wouldn't you know, it showed up yet again. Any of you ever had one of those? I mean, I feel like it's on the higher level of the spiral or the deeper level of the onion or something like that. But soon after, an amazing series of synchronicities unfolded around this issue that ultimately resulted in a huge shift in my relationship with my father, who had died 14 years before. I'll share the most important of these with you now. We were at a spiritual conference at Disney World, and I found myself drawn to requesting a counseling session from a particular minister on this issue. She said yes, and I shared some details about the situation. Then she said, we're going to do something a little bit unconventional. You sit over there, and you be your father, and I'll sit here, and I'll be you, and we'll have a conversation. Well, my first response was, no way. We are too different. I could never think like him, and he never really got who I am. So how could this possibly work? And yet, you know, something magical happened, as one might expect at Disney World. But by the end of the session, I'd come to see how much alike in many key ways we were, that many of our life issues were actually quite similar, and that what I'd felt as disapproval really came from his concern for me in my unconventional life. I felt so much more compassion for him. I really feel that the healing work is now complete, which has cleared me on many levels to do the creative work in front of me individually and us at this time. But I wouldn't recommend that you wait until after the person is gone. Now is definitely the best time for us to do our forgiveness work.
You know, as a result of reviewing my life, I've been able to identify attitudes and patterns that have outlived their usefulness for me. For instance, until 5 years ago, I served as the treasurer on the national level for Centers for Spiritual Living for 10 years. After this decade of service, my creative juices were no longer flowing, and I had a growing negative attitude. Inside, I was getting the message that it was time for a change, but it actually took me some months to get up the courage to release the treasurer's post. I really struggled with releasing what had been such a large part of my identity. Until I actually did so, I had no idea what a drain it had been on my psyche.
And I did.
Letting go has allowed me to open up to a greater creative expression than I could have imagined when I was so immersed in that role.
So once we've reviewed our lives and done the work of forgiving others and ourselves and releasing all that no longer serves us, we get to move into the creative possibilities that open up when we align with the source of all creativity, spirit itself. Each one of us has come to this planet with a purpose only we can fulfill. We are each a unique expression of the one divine source. In the first half of life, we've often let our life be directed by well-meaning others, like parents, even friends, teachers, our culture, religious organizations, and so on. Now it is time to listen to the wisdom inside us that will bring us home to our authentic nature, our true calling, our purpose in life. Who are we really? What gifts are uniquely ours? And how are we to joyously use them in service of a greater purpose? As Jean Houston has adamantly declared, you are not an encapsulated bag of skin dragging around a dreary little ego. No, you are an evolutionary wonder.
Another way of saying that is that we are spiritually magnificent.
So listening to our true essence and then creatively relating to life from this place is what brings meaning, purpose, and vitality to our later years.
You know, the process of aging can be challenging. It involves committed spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical work. When we find ourselves being self-critical and judgmental about physical changes occurring in our body, or some unskillful way we handled a situation, hurt someone's feelings, or did something embarrassing, it's important to be gentle with ourselves.
I learned a lot about self-compassion 3 years ago in the process of undergoing treatment for 3 different types of skin cancer. In February, I went for a surgical procedure to remove what appeared on the surface to be just a little tiny, small, pink basal cell cancer to the right of my right eye. And after a 9-hour process, I was left with a hole the size of a quarter. I can still remember when the surgeon handed me the mirror to take a look and the disbelief I felt. Who was that? The next day I returned to him to do reconstructive surgery. And at the end of that procedure, I was again handed a mirror. This time I saw more than 100 stitches running up from my chin, up around where the hole had been, and down the other side and back to my chin. And it resembled something like centipedes walking along my face. Yeah, you got to see it. It was pretty horrifying, especially since, I have to admit, my looks had been a significant part of my self-image all my life. Talk about loss of identity. The next few months were very challenging, including the additional removal of a squamous cell cancer and a melanoma. I had to re-examine who I was and my relationship to life. Initially, I questioned my self-worth, felt that my body had let me down, and even got a little depressed. Here's where all my years of spiritual practices came to my aid. The centering and focusing power of meditation. The knowledge of my true essence as spirit in form. Accepting the present moment rather than resisting it. Gratitude for the many blessings of my life, especially this one sitting next to me. The love and gentleness of self-compassion. Releasing my old self-image and embracing a new, broader, more empowering view of myself. The inspiration of my life purpose and the support from my spiritual community. As a result of all these spiritual practices, I sit before you a different person from 3 years ago, and I am most grateful.
I'm grateful that you're still sitting here.
Yeah, well,
You know, it's not just physical changes that come into the aging process. I've experienced some mental lapses. The other day, I went to take the compost out to our compost bin, which happens to be next to our tool shed, and I wound up in the tool shed. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing there. Fortunately, I had the compost bin in my hand, and I realized, oh, that's what I'm doing. So I backed out of the tool shed and went on with my business. Sound familiar? We're all going to experience physical, mental, and emotional changes in the future. And developing a spiritual practice of self-compassion, along with a good sense of humor, will help prepare us for adjusting to them and those of our loved ones. Barbara and I have taken to sharing our misadventures with each other and laughing about them. And with these additional stresses brought on by the COVID-19 restrictive conditions, we need self-compassion and humor, even more, to be human.
also, as I've learned from personal experience, having compassion with ourselves also assists us in being more compassionate with others in their aging process.
So we hope that these spiritual practices we've shared here can become guideposts along your path in finding your unique calling and shifting your consciousness away from self-limiting beliefs and fears about aging and toward living the rest of your life fueled by passion, purpose, and expanded possibilities. We'll be exploring these and the other spiritual practices in greater depth in our upcoming 8-week live, interactive, creative aging, embracing life with passion, purpose, and possibility course starting October 1st through November 19th. But before we move into the question and answer segment of this evening, we'd like to share a few lines from Walt Whitman's inspirational poem, Song of the Open Road, which we think capture the essence of what we've been discussing here tonight. From this hour, I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines, going where I list, my own master, total and absolute, listening to others, considering well what they say, pausing, searching, receiving, contemplating, gently, but with undeniable will, divesting myself of the holds that would hold me.
I inhale great draughts of space. The east and the west are mine. The north and the south are mine. I am larger, better than I thought. I did not know I held so much goodness.
So that ends our formal presentation. And now we'd like to check in with you to see if there are any of these spiritual practices that you would like to learn a little bit more about. And this is going to be a poll. So Robert, if you would put the poll up, we're going to show you the 12 spiritual practices that we just have on the wheel, 10. Thank you, Barbara, that we have on the wheel, and just pick 3 of them that you would like to further explore. Do this as quickly as you can.
I was pulling you over because your shoulder isn't in the screen. Can you see that? You have to get closer to me.
If you move over a little bit.
We can do that. Push me up.
Get your hand out of my space. It's good.
All right, can you see the results there on your screen?
Yes.
Let's see.
So releasing at 47% is in a tie with self-compassion, followed up by a tie between calling and visioning and forgiveness. And then we have meditation, life review, gratitude, and life purpose. So this will give all of you something to look into in the future and find some way to further study these things and to practice them. There's not a lot of study required. It's just an important thing to realize that every day being self-compassionate, every day being grateful, every day meditating can make a big difference and gives you an anchor, someplace to get grounding so you can move through these turbulent times with some level of ease and grace. So now we want to open it up to questions, and there are 3 ways you can participate. 1, you could write a question in the chat. 2, you could click the raise hand icon. And Robert, where is that located? In the participants icon at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, it should be. You should be
Okay.
able to find that raise hand button.
So if you raise your hand, Robert will call on you and ask you a question and share your comment with audio only. You can also click raise hand, and if you're comfortable being seen, Robert will make you a panelist and bring you on the screen to ask your question or make a comment. So we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, so we have a question. Can you tell us a little bit more about your course starting in October?
Yeah, Barbara, why don't you tell us?
Okay, well, basically, we think of it as an evolutionary journey. So we all arrive together at the beginning of the course with who we are and where we are. And we've really designed the course to be an experience of transformation throughout the 8 weeks. And it really takes that long to be able to go into these practices in great depth. And it's sort of like we create this sacred space. It's like the chrysalis of the butterfly. And in that, in a loving way, we get to look at all the different parts of ourselves and examine, you know, does that old belief, attitude, or story still serve me? Where did it even come from? And once we can sort of bring that up from the subconscious, then we have an opportunity to look at it and say, oh, do I want to keep that one? Is that one that really is serving me now? I think, Dad, thank you so much for your, you know, telling me I needed to be very responsible, more responsible in my life, but I think now I'm good with that. And it's time for me to open up to what does the universe want me to be doing now? So our formula is kind of sort of tripartite. We have a combination of inner introspective exercises, and then you are put into groups of 2 or 3, depending on the size of the group, and you can discuss with other class participants, and it really creates a great sense of community to share that honestly in a small group. And then we bring everybody back into the large group, and then we can have a larger group discussion so everybody can hear what the other people did in their groups and what they thought and what they're struggling with and where their successes are. And by the end of the course, we do all the different practices you saw on the wheel. By the end of the course, it is really interesting. We actually have a time where people have gotten in touch with a life purpose of sorts, and they declare it, and they also talk about how the course has impacted and changed their lives. For example, in our last course earlier this year, one woman in her mid-70s, she really took to heart the life review exercise. She'd been journaling for decades and she had all this material, but she didn't know how to organize it. And somehow looking at her life by decades helped her, gave her a framework, and she has now completed a memoir to give to her children to let them know who she really is. She felt like, you know, she was so under the influence of other people all her life. Her kids didn't really know who she was, so she's done that. Another woman has, she started writing a novel, and at the same time, she also applied to ministerial school and changed the course of her life. And another woman changed her professional engagement of 25 years to just open up to this new phase of her life, that something else was out there for her to do as well as everything she'd done so far. So things do shift. And can you think of, what have I maybe forgotten?
I think you do a thorough job.
But you know, we want you to know that it really is a safe and sacred space, and we honor each and every one of you. And the people who take these courses are just amazing beings. They're willing to do the work, to look deeper and say, well, I'm bigger than this. I am more. That Walt Whitman quote, I am larger, better than I thought. I did not know I held so much goodness. And that's what has happened time and again when we've done this.
Wonderful. We have Sharon coming on. We're going to unmute her, and she is going to come on the screen as well if we're able to here. There we go.
Yay. Hi, Barbara and Walter. So wonderful to see you and hear you. It's not really a question. It's just, I was thinking as you were talking about how, you know, elders, if you think of the life cycle, you know, in elderhood, we're moving towards the great beyond. And so we're kind of naturally more predisposed to where we're heading in some ways, because the time of reckoning is on its way, right?
That's right.
So it strikes me as really appropriate to do those kinds of reviews and clean up what needs forgiveness. And if we're not already doing so, learn about self-compassion and gratitude, because that's what we're going to take when we stage right. So it was really just a reflection on the relevance of what you're offering in your program for that stage of life. And the other thing I was thinking about was, you know, in Indigenous cultures, like the Australian Aboriginal cultures where I am, and also the Native American and First Nations cultures, elders are seen as the wise ones. You know, they're revered as the holders of deeply embodied lived experience. And so it's so different in Western culture, where we kind of have this focus on youth and beauty and money and all of those things, and we're kind of seen as past our use by date. It's really important that we embody the kinds of values that you're talking about and become the elders that are offering our wisdom and modeling that to the world. And so I just, again, want to say, I'm really proud of you for doing that and you know, taking it up, because it's not modeled. There are very few courses like this. I think it's so essential. And the third thing I wanted to say was, I was laughing at your story, Walter, of going out to the compost, and you know, those things happen for me from time to time as well. And I was just thinking, what a great ally humour is in our eldering process. You know, we need to be able to lighten up and laugh a bit and have some fun and not take it all so seriously. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you represent, and thank you for what you're contributing to the world. And yeah, I love you both dearly.
And Sharon, thank you for modeling everything that we talked about. We look to you for a lot of our, boy, look at Sharon, she's doing that. Yes, we'll do that. We can do that too. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Love you.
Yeah.
All right, we have Susan that wishes to speak. She has her hand raised, so we're allowing her to talk. Susan, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, I was just going to add, to what Sharon said, yes, thank you very much for what you're doing. I left a job in government when I was in my mid-50s and traveled around the world based on an indigenous policy that says there won't be peace on earth until the voices of the grandmothers are heard. And I really believe that the role in indigenous
Susan, we're losing you a little bit.
excuse me. Well, I was just going to say the role of eldership is really missing in a lot of in the Western society. So what you're talking about is really important because we as elders, and especially as elder women, have a prophesized role to play in bringing about peace and bringing about the changes that are needed at this time. So thank you for what you're doing.
And thank you. Are you one of these elders to be passing on the wisdom? You sound like it.
Well, I meet with a group of grandmothers every week for about the last, I want to say about 6 years. We meet with elders from around the world. And one of the things that we talk about is, well, we talk about many of the things that you have already identified. So I see a lot of synchronicity in that, because this idea of being of service and being on a spiritual path and giving back and remaining an active part of the world, especially in Western society where eldership is not valued. So again, I want to thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to learning more from you.
Well, thank you. We hope you'll take our class. It'd be fabulous to have you.
So I just want to acknowledge the fact that you said you met every week with a group of grandmothers. That in itself is being in spiritual community, and that is a spiritual practice. We think of spiritual community as church. It doesn't have to be that. It can be a group of neighbors. It can be people with a common interest around a breed of animals. There are all sorts of ways that we can become connected and share who we are with other members of the group. And community is a necessary human experience. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for your question and your encouragement. And we encourage you to keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a question here from Chuck Riley. He says, what might you say regarding regrets and letting them go in order to move on?
So I'm going to let Barbara answer that question, because Chuck Riley is someone from her early history.
Oh, well, that doesn't mean me. No, I don't know what you're Chuck, it's so nice that you're here. And I don't know what you're referring to, but really what we've come to about, use the word regrets. Well, we've kind of discovered that really everything that we've experienced along the way is part of what has made us who we are today. It is, you wouldn't be you now, and I wouldn't be me now if we hadn't had those painful experiences, or the ones that seem like they didn't work out, the way our mind thought they should, or maybe even our heart wanted them to. But what we've learned to do, is to honor all the experiences that we've had, even the painful ones, and say, wow, from that, I gained this. This brought a piece of my life into place here. This person contributed this way. Maybe they didn't turn out to be my, part of our culture is like, oh, you find Prince Charming or Princess Beautiful, whatever, and you find that one person and that's it for the rest of your life. Well, maybe, maybe not. And each person it's almost like we're a mosaic or we're a jigsaw puzzle, and each experience, each person, each thing that we do, each spiritual teacher that we work with, each disappointment we have, each growth experience we have, they're all another piece in that. And so to make us a whole human being, we have to really honor and value all of ourselves and trust that in some way there is a design for our lives that sometimes, I know for me, I mean, one year I broke my leg in 2 places because I needed to get out of Aspen, Colorado, and I just was not listening. My path was saying, okay, enough of this fun stuff you're doing here, get on with it. And it took 2 casts for me to wake up. But, you know, it definitely got my attention. It wasn't the funnest thing, but it got me to move on and eventually got me to the Gurdjieff School where I met you you know, many decades ago. And the Gurdjieff School shifted the whole course of my life to be immersed for 9 months in consciousness work from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. at night, 10 p.m. at night. So Chuck, is there something else you'd like to add to that? Any more on the question? Because we wish you
Chuck
all
says
the best.
Chuck says I totally agree. So thanks and all the best to you too.
All right.
So
Look forward to
wonderful.
connecting.
Yeah, so I have a question. When you look at everything that's going on here right now here in you know the world, has it changed your outlook and how you handle life? You know, currently, you know, future, has it changed at all?
Well, I would say that some of the patterns that we clearly had prior to becoming homebound were things that we weren't necessarily greatly attached to, we thought, until, and I'll speak for myself, until we could no longer go once a month to our favorite place to have breakfast. I mean, we haven't been in a restaurant for 6 months, and we're not about to step into a restaurant. And I would say that we've picked up our spiritual practice a little bit, and on a personal level, I find myself trying to focus more on the now, not on the past. Regrets live in the past, and there's nothing we can do about it except bless them and let them go and not let them become a big part of our life. And the same thing is true about the future. I mean, it's good to have plans and desires, but there are some who say the future never comes. Now is the only time there is. There is no past, there is no future. Now is the only time there is. So I think I find myself living not with a great deal of success, but more in the now than I have in the past. That would be the major change that I've experienced.
And Robert, I would say that I'm really learning to catch myself more and more when I find myself, especially reflecting on the world, seeing, you know, I think of myself as a spiritual person, but sometimes that can draw me to my lowest human part. And so I think, well, how do I apply these, you know, these principles to this? And one thing I always remember is that Barbara Marx Hubbard said, there has to be a breakdown before there's a breakthrough. And I and many I know, excuse me, are hoping, and I can't say I'm as strong as trusting. I would really like to be trusting that that's where we are. But that what I'm getting more and more is that we really have to come together and each one of us work on our own consciousness so that we can tip the tipping point toward positive evolution instead of devolution that she talks about. And we now have a situation where we have a adult child who moved in with us, and that's put us all in this kind of cauldron. And it's been really interesting for, I think, all 3 of us, especially my daughter and myself. And we've grown so much because it's important every day, if we have a disconnect, to go back in and say, I'm sorry, you know, I love you. And we, you know, we know that the foundation of our relationship is love. And it's a challenging time for all of us, you know. So being really, as Walter was saying, being current as we can. And the other thing is also because with COVID-19, we really don't know who's going to be here or not. You know, we trust that those we love will still be around, and so how do we have honorable closure We have it by having honorable present, I think. Is that?
Oh, I thank you so much for answering that. Both beautiful answers. I know personally, there's no question it's made me live more in the now as well, and appreciate every moment. There's just no question. So we do have a hand raised. It is Chuck. So I'm going to see if we can get him to speak here. Chuck, can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself? There we go. Chuck?
Yeah, I can hear you. I didn't
We can hear you.
But I did want to say I really appreciate what y'all are doing. It's really beautiful to see.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful. So that, you know, ends the
Well, no, I see on the chat that Sharon Maloney has.
there you go. You're right on. Let's open up to Sharon here again.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I just had a comment about Chuck's question regarding regrets, and in some ways it's relevant to your question as well, Robert, about how things have changed, because I guess with regards to regrets, there's, you know, we all have regrets, we all have things that we wish we hadn't done or said or whatever, and that there's a certain amount of grief associated with that, you know, grief of what might have been, the innocence that might have been, or the purity of what might have been if we hadn't done whatever it was. And so I think there's, you know, like that self-compassion that you were speaking about, and also the ability to forgive ourselves when we stuff up, because it's part of our humanity that happens. And I see it's connected with your question, Robert, because, you know, right now we live in this very different world where all of our stuff is coming up to the surface to be greeted and welcomed and worked with. It's like we're all in the cauldron on Grandmother Earth at this moment. And I think in some ways it's a very beautiful opportunity for healing and practicing those practices that you're talking about, like self-compassion and forgiveness, and not expecting perfection, because we're imperfect spiritual beings, and we're all doing our best, but we all have our wounding and our blind spots. And so regrets is part of that, and the ability to forgive ourselves and bring compassion. You know, it's in some ways very easy to forgive somebody else, or seems easier sometimes to forgive somebody else because we can cut them a bit of slack or make excuses for them or whatever. It seems harder to do that for ourselves, and yet it seems so essential that we do that, especially in this time, so we can get on. You know, our vulnerability as human beings, and our health, and our questionable longevity in the face of what we're confronting, requires us to make that system upgrade, is how I would describe it. So yeah, may we all continue.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for broadening out.
Yeah, wonderful. Is there anyone else who wishes to make any comments? Raise your hand or type them in.
And also, we have a little experiential exercise that this might be a good time to do, and people can think about if there are any other questions they'd like to do. We're here with you until about 7:20 when we turn it back to Stephen. But if you're good with this, we can switch gears for a few minutes. And is that okay with you, Robert? And then
absolutely.
And feel free to be typing in your questions, or, well, actually you won't be able to too much because you'll have your eyes closed, but let's move into this for a minute. So we're doing this, an exercise which is the kind of exercise we do in our course. It is one of the ones we do, but we do a lot of different kinds of things. And this one is designed to give you a glimpse into your deepest heart's desire. So as a preface to this, during 2018 and 2019, we are continual class takers. We just have gained so much with inspirational classes and reading over the years. So that's really a part of our lifestyle. But we spent a year working with a futurist and visionary evolutionist, Barbara Marx Hubbard, who was really the inspiration behind this whole social chrysalis platform. And, and she made her unexpected transition on April 10th, 2020, just a few months after we had been working with her, at the age of 89. And she was the living exemplar of someone who was truly in touch with her life purpose and living it with her whole consciousness and being for literally decades. She was an instrument for bringing the scientific and spiritual realms together in collaboration for the highest good of our planet. To be in her presence was to be in the presence of delight, curiosity, intelligence, and a vast understanding of humanity's unique and important role in the entire scheme of life. As she reminded us many times, the 13.7 billion year evolutionary process has resulted in us, all of us. And she said, we're all here on purpose and with a purpose. And the way the whole system tips right now is influenced by each one of us. As a way to get in touch with what is uniquely ours to do, we worked in groups of up to 8 people and explored what is our deepest heart's desire. Your deepest heart's desire is not a personal whim like a new item of clothing, a car, or an exciting vacation. Rather, it's the impulse of creation as it's turned up as you and as me. All great people have been able to do this one special thing, unique to them. So what is impelling you to move forward to say yes to at this time? So now, if you would please find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and center yourself by taking a couple of deep breaths. And now this time, direct your breath to the top of your head and feel the tingling sensation there. See if you can feel that energy pulsing up there. As we open ourselves to the wisdom of the cosmos. So feel that activate the top of your head. And now direct your breath, your next breath, to the center of your chest and experience the expansive peace of love. Ask yourself, what is my deepest heart's desire? What is my deepest heart's desire? Now trust that it will come forward for you. Draw on the universal intelligence that created you, spirit itself. As Ernest Holmes said, evolution is always forward. It is moving toward more life, more intelligence, more love, more creativity, more freedom, more joy, not less. Evolution is on our side and it wants us to succeed. Now ask yourself again in the silence, what is my deepest heart's desire? And we'll take 1 minute for you just to sit with that.
15 seconds.
Okay, do you have a little flash of an idea? No, you won't expect to get this full-blown deepest heart's desire or life purpose in this moment, but do you have a glimpse of something that has come through for you? And if so, inside yourself, inside your heart and your mind, say yes to it. Even if you've only had a little glimpse of your deepest heart's desire, that yes, as we have explained in our own life, opens doorways into the unknown you can't even imagine at this moment. Say yes to this now for yourself. Say yes to what is calling you. And finally, ask yourself what is one thing you can do today or in the near future to further your deepest heart's desire. And then set an intention to do that. We'll take 30 seconds or so for this. What intention, what's one action you could take that would move this process toward realizing your deepest heart's desire forward? One thing that can expand it. Let's ask people to share about that experience. So now, I invite you to please return your attention to your body. Become aware of yourself sitting in your chair. Be aware that you're part of this event this evening. And open your eyes. So did you learn something new about yourself? Did anything surprise, touch, challenge, or inspire you? These are things that we'll invite you to share after the exercise in a minute or so. If you'd like to share some of your experiences with us, we would love to hear them. So just know that you're getting in touch with your deepest heart's desire, and shining your light in a unique way activates everybody else's light, like the wonderful Indra's net of lights in Hindu mythology. And together, with everyone lit up, with the whole net of existence lit up, we can tip the evolutionary impulse consciously in favor of the highest good for planet Earth and all of its life forms. And as a last note, when you leave here, observe with curiosity what begins to emerge on your own evolutionary journey as a result of your yes.
So we have a few more minutes to share about anything, or maybe your deepest heart's desire. You could put it in the chat as a single word. The word that came up for me was peace, that I could be an instrument of peace and bring about peace in the world. And something that I could do as a first step would be to be peaceful with myself, to move into a level of self-compassion. And so when I can't remember a person's name, or I have a lapse, I just be gentle with myself. And that allows me to move into a more peaceful state instead of, God damn it, what's happening now? So let's open it up and see. We have one comment from Leanne. Full expression, great.
And you are definitely on your pathway to being there. But anyone else, if you want to talk, share verbally, that would be wonderful too. From Sharon Maloney, my deepest heart's desire is to restore the sacredness of the female body to the planet. And I'd love to share mine that came to me, has come to me in the last few years. It seems to have stuck. And for me, it's to be a bridge between the spiritual realms and the material plane, and assist others in knowing their true divine identity and manifesting it. So my job is to be a bridge somehow and make spiritual principles intelligible so that people can live their highest human potential and their highest spiritual potential.
I love that, Barbara. That's really, wonderful. And, I have to, echo that in many ways, myself, when I look at, wanting to write more and leave more ways of passage, if you want to say. So I like that. Thank you for that.
Wait, can you say more about that, Robert? To write more, did you say?
Right. Absolutely. To write more, to put more, information together as far as rites of passages that can help people to do that, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We'd love, you can share some with us too. We love to use them in our courses. They're really important.
And I see in the chat room from Susan Christensen, she wants to complete her film on prophecies and walk the path. Walk the path Creator wants me to walk in service. That's great. And Sharon asked, how do we find out more about that? So if Susan's in a position to raise her hand and get recognized by Robert, we could hear her voice.
And she could tell us Susan, you could tell us what you're working on and how people could connect with you.
Susan, you can speak now. Please share.
All right. Can you hear me all right? Well, I did a film. I think I walked a similar path that you both have been walking, or that you've all been walking. I left a government job and got on a ferry from Alaska and traveled from the farthest north place on earth to the farthest south, and did a film and a book called The Wisdom of the Grandmothers. And after that was completed, I kind of felt like my job was done and realized that I was just starting on a whole nother journey to do another film on Indigenous prophecies and their meaning for today. And COVID stopped me at the very last interview I was scheduled to do in Australia, right when everything got shut down. My flight was supposed to leave that day to go to Australia. So I haven't been able to complete that, and I don't know when I will be able to, but I'm really been made a commitment to walk the good red road and really believe these prophecies are all coming true, and they align very much with the work of Barbara Marx Hubbard. I've only recently become more familiar with her work, but anyway, I just am really grateful for people like everyone who's on this call, who's exploring what it is at this time that we're living through collectively on Earth is asking us to do, because we are all in that transformation. And it's definitely in fulfillment of many Indigenous prophecies that exist around the world. So thank you for asking. And I have a website called The Wisdom of the Grandmothers and another one called Women's Voices Project. So feel free to get a hold of me, and I hope that I can learn more from all of you, because I'm very, very touched. My heart is touched.
Well, thank you. And I'll just add one more thing. When you said you thought you were done, it's like, ha ha, says the universe. No, there's an old saying that I picked up decades ago probably, but it was like, from those to whom much is given, much will be required. And, you know, it's like once we complete one turn of the spiral, then there's another one. You know, your creativity is not going to stop. What you have to give to the universe, as Carl Jung was saying, it's going to go until you can you're no longer here. I mean, that's what we've discovered. The creativity that we're talking about, it's like, it just comes through in waves now. You know, it's like on so many different things. And it's like, really? You want us to go there? You want us to now try that? And it's like, okay, we'll do it. And it's really an exciting, fulfilling thing, even though it can be scary. And it's like, oh my gosh, are we enough for this too? And but know that you have a whole foundation of people just supporting you and cheering you on. And thank you for all that you're doing and the contributions you're making to our planet.
Oh, thank you.
I just
All
want
right.
to add a comment, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Please
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, Susan, I just want to thank you for the beautiful work that you're doing. And, you know, ever since this COVID phenomenon has started, I've been looking for the wisdom of the grandmothers and stalking out Australian Aboriginal elders and listening to what they have to say, and then listening to the First Nations people and the different Indigenous grandmothers and grandfathers as well around the world. And what they say makes so much sense. So many you know, of the prophecies are now being actualized. This was always on the cards. And so for us as non-Indigenous people who haven't grown up with that understanding, it's so comforting to me to know that, you know, Indigenous people are there and that they've lived that wisdom and that connection to the earth and the elements and the elders and the ancestors and all of those things. It's like, they're our guides. You guys are our guides. So I just want to really honor you and say thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And you are, I'd like to say, both you and Susan and everyone, I'm sure, on this call in his or her own way, we have been given, Sharon, you, wait till you all encounter Sharon's course on restoring the sacredness of the feminine body to the planet. Is that, or you might say it better, say it how you prefer to say it, Sharon, but it's taking us back to the foundation.
It's restoring the sacredness of the female body. That's my thing that I'm here to do, but I don't want to hijack your roundtable.
It's incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
As each of all the different courses on Social Chrysalis are pretty amazing. We just all met and everybody talked about what they're doing, and it's a pretty extraordinary group of people. So we're grateful to Stephen Dinoco, who has put all this together, and for Robert for helping us with this, and Marty for helping us with all the logistics, and so many people. We have a wonderful group of faculty with Social Chrysalis. And
Well, speaking of Stephen, I think maybe it's a good time now to bring him on.
did you want to thank?
You did.
All right.
Thank
Well, thank you. You know, let's take a moment collectively just to take one nice deep breath in together. Just release it. This has been a rich discussion, beautiful. Just appreciate everyone's contribution to it. And you've all contributed, even if you weren't on camera. Just your presence is important and it's essential. And so much of what Barbara and Walter's work is all about is feeling into the presence. And it isn't always about doing, it's so much about being, and just appreciate all of you being here. So thank you so much. Barbara and Walter have mentioned their course. So Social Chrysalis is a platform that teaches the skills of conscious evolution. As Barbara said, inspired by Barbara Marx Hubbard, who I really had the honor of working with at the very end of her time here on planet Earth. And she was the inspiration for this platform. And she is the inspiration for this platform. She continues to be. So Barbara and Walter, their class is the one live program on Social Chrysalis that is going to kick off this year on October 1st as a special gift to you for being here on this roundtable. You can register actually at a discount. Their course is available for $100 US up until midnight Mountain Time on Friday. And if you simply go to the Social Chrysalis website, at the very top of the page, there's a link to you'll see a link to the course page and the sign up for their class. So just go to socialchrysalis.com. That's the only link you need to know about. It'll take you to the course, and you've got till midnight Friday Mountain Time to register at a special rate of $100. Regular price is $150.
And
So
Stephen, are we sending a follow-up email tomorrow that would make that easy for them to find as well?
yes. So after, as we usually do with these roundtables, you'll get a link to the recording of this. And especially there are many people who registered who did not make it tonight, so they'll watch the recording, and with that email there will be a link to register for Barbara and Walter's course. So thank you for mentioning that. As well, I want to mention that our next roundtable will be on September 16th, and I'll be doing that with my friend Noreen Kelly, and we're going to be talking about business with a conscience, the prerequisite to conscious business. And I've been involved in the conscious business movement for a few years now, and there's been so much that's happened in the world, and particularly a lot of questions about like, what's the purpose of business, and how lopsided things have been, because the 5 or 6 biggest businesses in the world have profited tremendously since COVID. And what does that say about business with a conscience? And Noreen and I are going to be talking about that as being the foundation for conscious business. And actually, we want to use that opportunity as a way to engage you in discussion about, like, what do you feel business with a conscience is, should be, must be, as we go forward to evolve, quite frankly. So Noreen and I are planning to do a course on conscious business. And we realize that the way conscious business even has been taught in recent years is actually ripe for a complete redo, given the many changes and crises that we're experiencing in the world today. And then the last thing I want to mention is that Social Chrysalis is proud to be a co-sponsor of the Building the New World Conference. So in 2015 was the last time the Building the New World Conference happened. It was a live event in Independence, Virginia at the Oracle Institute. Barbara Marks Hubbard was one of the keynote speakers. And she was expected to be there again in 2020. And of course, Barbara is with us, but not in the material anymore. So she's with us in spirit. And because of COVID-19, the Building the New World Conference, which will kick off Peace Weekend, September 19th of this year, is all virtual. And Social Chrysalis is grateful to be a co-sponsor of that. And if you are so inclined to participate, I'll put the link to the conference registration in the chat, and also we'll send that via email. btnw.world is the website, and right now you can get in on an early bird rate of $75 for 24 presentations over 2 months. And as well, if you're a student, there's a special rate of $25. So it's a very economical way to learn about what it takes to build the new world, quite frankly. And when Barbara spoke at that conference in 2015, she ended her keynote by saying this: "I would like to declare that we place the wheel of co-creation out on a global scale to reveal by 2020 that we already have a world that could work for all, and we can avoid the crisis and collapse which is foreseen." And if there's any notion or doubt or experience of the crisis and collapse, we're in the middle of it. I mean, we really feel personally that we're in the tipping point. And Barbara was always saying our crisis is a birth. So it's time for us collectively to show up. The Building the New World Conference will support you in doing that. And it's purposely been made a very economical price point so that as many people as possible could come together and participate in it. So btnw.world, Social Chrysalis is one of the sponsors, so we look forward to having you there. So with that, I want to thank Barbara and Walter. We really appreciate you being on the faculty. Sharon's on our faculty as well. So is Robert Novak. Marty Spiegelman, who was mentioned, is on our faculty. She was behind the scenes helping to produce this roundtable. And then Noreen and I will be with you on September 16th. You'll get a link to register for that roundtable in the follow-up email to this event. So thank you so much, everyone. An abundance of blessings, peace, and prosperity to you all. Thank you.
And we add ours to that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We love you.